Oh ho! What have we here? Those look like printing presses. And what do I see over there? Oh my! These are yen! Could they be counterfeit?
Lord, he's a bad actor.
Maybe you can hum the theme song. Won't hold it against you if you get parts wrong. While the memory's not too strong, there's a piece of you from a time long gone. So while these fuzzy warm feelings remain, question we ask is still the same. Is it a treasure or just plain lame? Is this still good?
Lupin the Third.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Is This Still Good? I'm your host, Gavin Murray. I'm joined by a lesser host, Sage Bilderback.
That's me. I'm the lesser host. I'm going to do the whole episode as if I'm a smaller, higher-pitched human than normal.
I'm hoping that translates well for you, the audience at home. Now joining us from his own home is our guest today.
Hi, I'm Seamus Calder. I'm really happy to be back on Is This Still Going?
Got him. Seamus, thank you for rejoining us. Coming on back. Finding out what we're doing here.
Actually, I'm as confused as you are.
Welcome back to Season 3, kids.
It's very hot down in Los Angeles, and I'm losing my mind, even with the AC on.
That's fair.
And that's why it was really nice to shut off a lot of the parts in my brain and return to what I find a very comforting classic. Lupin the Third and the Castle of Cagliostro. Now,
Do we applaud?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that everyone at home was. This is an early film for me that have on VHS. I've watched it tons and tons and tons of times. I probably bought it at Streetlight as like a blind purchase just because I recognized the character from Adult Swim, the Cartoon Network After Hours streaming thing.
Was it Adult Swim or not Toonami?
You know, I've been trying to rack my brain around which one it was. I didn't watch a ton of Toonami growing up.
Okay, is there a difference between Adult Swim and Toonami?
Yeah, Toonami was in the afternoon.
Yes.
That's it?
And then
Adult
they
Swim
had
was
an
for
alien
adults
played
only.
by Stephen J. Bloom, who would
is it
introduce
like-
everything.
Is it like the difference between lunch and dinner?
No, because Adult Swim was more about adult-themed kind of animation, at least initially. It was where you got your home movies, reruns of Mission Hill, Family Guy, things like that. Toonami was more of an introduction to anime, so you would get Cowboy Bebop.
Was Cowboy Bebop Toonami as well? Or was that Adult Swim?
I think that inevitably. I mean, well, because there was also just like not Adult Swim, but just late night Cartoon Network, which was just like Inuyasha. But Lupin, I feel like was Toonami, just because I remember the bumpers for it, where it'd be Lupin the Third.
Let's make sure to sample that and sprinkle that throughout the episode.
Like the actual sample or just Seamus saying that?
Seamus saying that. Now, Sage, had you heard of or seen this at all?
This is, I mean, most of my Miyazaki I kind of heard through you. I have no familiarity with this as a franchise. I didn't grow up with anime. I've actually seen tragically few Miyazaki films or Studio Ghibli in general. Forgive me in advance, audience and guest, when I mispronounce a lot of Japanese companies and names wrong. This is just, it's not going to stop happening now.
I'm going to do the same, and I'm not sorry.
But I went in pretty blind. I have seen Princess Mononoke was basically not just the only Ghibli, but the only anime of any sort that I watched growing up. This was, I mean, I'd go so far as to say anime was the thing I actively avoided and shunned.
Wow.
Which was easy to do growing up in the woods. But anytime a friend tried to show me, a Dragon Ball, I'm not into it.
I'm deeply uncomfortable when people try and show me their Dragon Balls.
You can see mine on my videos.
Oh,
right?
God, put those away.
Oh, God,
This is
no!
a vid-
Seamus, no!
I'm so glad this isn't a visual medium.
Don't worry, guys. I didn't show them my testicles. I just showed them my statue of Yamcha. Somehow more embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was so traumatic.
Gavin, I had to look it up because I was curious. So we were both kind of on it. It's Toonami later became a block that they aired during Adult Swim.
Oh.
Initially, it was a mid-afternoon block, and then it later became a thing that they incorporated into Adult Swim as well.
I did not want to run a corrections episode on this one.
I definitely remember the little robot guy driving you around, and that I associated with the afternoon. Whereas, like, Cowboy Bebop and this, and also Inuyasha, I guess that was Adult Swim. That seems very childish, and I just want to make sure that all the Inuyasha fans at home know that I think slightly less of them for watching more than an episode of that show.
Dude, you just pissed off like 4 people, and they're gonna fucking come for you.
I know. My sister was a huge Inuyasha fan, and there was only one TV in the house, so
That handsome cat boy was the original Taylor Swift movie. his online audience is insane.
Yeah, I 100%.
Before you boys go too deep into reliving your 90s and talking about a specific television channel, I have a little song that I prepared. It's a question that I want to ask Gavin. Called, well, you'll see. Why do we care? Why do I give a shit about what you share? It's just not fair. I've limited time to watch all this slime. Tell me why I should give a fuck. Gavin, why should we care?
Did you refer to that as slime?
Well, that is unfair. It did make more sense than any of the other rhymes that came in.
So you're asking me to defend sharing Lupin III, the Castle of Cagliostro with you?
Oui.
Okay.
The directorial debut of Hayao Miyazaki.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
The rebranding of Lupin from a lecherous, selfish thief to wholesome hero and comedic caperist.
See, if you can make me care, you can make the audience care. Well, good. Then you guys want to hear the second verse then? Sorry.
Dear God. Seamus, I just want to check real quick, because we didn't fully get into where you sat on this. You watched this originally on Toonami. What were your initial...
Castle of Cagliostro, I think.
Well, sorry, Lupin the Third.
Lupin the Third, yeah. I just randomly caught episodes on Cartoon Network and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I never dove too, like, it was always that show that was just coming off of the air right as I turned the TV on. Yeah, I caught the tail end of a lot of Lupin episodes.
Did that haunt you?
No, there was a Case Closed episode though that I fell asleep in the middle of about like 15 years ago, and I still wonder who killed their classmate.
The case was never closed.
Well, there's also like 700 episodes of that show, so it's really hard to dwindle it down to which one I was randomly watching for 5 minutes.
I will say that is another thing every time I do consider watching an anime is I open it up and like I get episode count in the hundreds or literally sometimes over 1,000, and just like hard pass.
Yeah, they're not all like that,
Yeah.
but yes, they can be extremely intimidating. As Seamus, fan of One Piece.
Oh no!
I don't even think I'm allowed to call myself that anymore. I am so like, I haven't been able to keep up for like 3 or 4 years, and they are very past where I was.
Seamus, I'm so sorry. Your life sounds so difficult.
By not being able to keep up, how many episodes have you seen?
I think I hit about 400.
Okay.
They're over 1,000 now.
Yeah.
My God.
And then what about Castle of Cagliostro?
So I think I actually saw this well after the fact that I knew about Lupin, Miyazaki, or anime in general. It was just I've talked about it on this before. My first job was a video store. This is just one of the things that I put on when I was working or watched there.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason that I like actually retroactively went back and looked into Lupin more was because it is one of the primary influences on Cowboy Bebop, which was what basically like I would say is probably like the thing that really made me be like, wait, that and like Yu Yu Hakusho were the two animes that I was like, wait, this is a great medium. And then now I am who I am today.
Yeah, and Sage, to get back to your question, why we're talking about the Castle of Cagliostro, despite like I think it's an amazing film, and just worth it on its own merit, is that it was the building block for so many other things. It has been like the ripple of it is felt through media just on a large, like en masse.
It's large scale, possibly one of the few things that really brought Western media, or like, I'm sorry, like anime and Eastern animation into the Western pop culture lexicon and things like that. Not directly Lupin himself, but it is these things like Cowboy Bebop, Studio Ghibli. Like there's a lot of wrinkle effects of influence that come out of this movie specifically, but also the character, the manga. There's a whole plethora of little things that this character's kind of inspired, and also it's just fun. And it's a movie that was made in 1979, and you could tell me it was made this.
But yeah, I mean, like people like Pixar has credited this like with its existence, like just the people have just been infatuated with this film and the structure and the style of hero it portrays. It came out right before Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think both of those, they run in like a similar place and like kind of make me feel the same like kind of childhood wonder of adventure that like I don't feel like I get to feel that much recently either, which bums me out.
Actually, I think that's a really great comparison is Lupin and Indiana Jones, just because they're kind of two sides of the same coin. I mean, Lupin's the gentleman thief, Indiana Jones is the rough and tumble archaeologist, all that stuff. But I think that one of the core components is that Lupin is remembered for being more comedic than he actually is. Like he's got the very expressive face, and the eyes will bug out when he's like really being comedic. But then it's dude locks in like is locked in like 75% of the time, and really just like confident, straight stoic face. Really, actually is charming and all that. And then Indiana Jones is somebody that you remember there's funny things in it, but you don't remember the character is actually pretty comedic.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the sword fight thing where he pulls the gun, Lupin would do that 100%. Minus
Absolutely.
and depending on which version of Lupin you're watching, similarly, he would absolutely kill that person.
Oh yeah,
It's also the first Miyazaki I've seen that actually has characters doing quips. And they work in varying degrees, and there's also translation things to come up with. But like, of the one I watched growing up and the three I watched like this year, not a lot of quips.
Well, I mean,
Not a lot of goofballs goofing.
You started with Princess Mononoke, which is a movie that doesn't know how to have any fun whatsoever, I would argue.
Okay.
Most of his movies actually do have like some sort of quippy characters in them. There's a lot of fun to be had. And I do think that like while Monkey Punch, the guy who created Lupin, wanted there to be a lot of jokes in there and stuff, I think Miyazaki is also bringing a lot of the humor to this and like the charm, because originally Lupin wasn't supposed to be as charming as I think he comes across in this movie.
Yeah, walk me through kind of how we get to Cagliostro, because I approach this as like Miyazaki, Seamus' strong argument of like this is the first, or more or less the first Miyazaki film. And I didn't realize that this was attached to a larger franchise and maybe even a famous French detective from literature.
Yeah, well, so Lupin the Third, the whole backstory is that he's the grandson of the great Lupin, the gentleman thief, French.
Arsène Lupin.
Arsène Lupin. He's called the Wolf because his name's Lupin. It's like Lupin. There we go.
Yeah,
we could just move past that part.
Yeah, that's the only thing I remember from Brotherhood.
We'll come back to it. But yeah,
they call him Wolf a lot. Yeah. But then
wait, sorry, really quick before we move on. When you were watching this movie, did they call him Wolf in it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, wild. Continue. We'll get back to it.
See, Gavin watched in the original Japanese.
Sure. So yeah, they call him different things and everything. Like not every version of it is he Arsène Lupin. Sometimes it doesn't have a first name. But yeah, it was originally a Monkey Punch manga series, which really like evolved from its initial thing where he was just kind of like a ruthless thief. They kind of hint at it a little bit in that like little flashback where he's like, when I was younger and more reckless. Like, yeah, I don't know if that's intentionally, but like the early Lupin stories, he's a lot more carefree. Like, as like he's got his friends like Jingen. Like Jingen is ride or die, except in the early stories where halfway through the story they are trying to kill each other.
Yeah, he's selfish. He's a womanizer, and they're not really a team. They're just like a series of bandits who are out for themselves. There's much more like fraternity between them, like in this version.
This is like watching the Simpsons movie, but not having seen an episode of the Simpsons and then going back and being like, oh, this is what it used to be.
It's a little rough and tumble back in the beginning, huh?
Yeah, like they were getting their like sea legs, they were figuring it out. It's different, but this is the more like homunculus, copacetic version of all of these characters, kind of at the point where Lupin's going to be kind of unselfishly willing to go rescue a princess and all that stuff. All of the characters have already gone through a lot of different stories, and that original anime was also worked on by Miyazaki. That's how he kind of got in the position to direct this.
Yeah, just to flesh it out a little bit, the original manga came out in 1967, and the show started like a decade later. And about halfway through, they were doing the much rougher version of him, and the original director got fired off the project, and Miyazaki and Isao Takahata, who would go on to found Studio Ghibli, took over and directed the second half of the series and started kind of moving him towards this more friendly, less selfish, and more fun version of what Lupin became. They also changed the color of his jacket when they brought it back in part 2, where that kind of became more of the regular, like what Lupin was. Now, the reason I'm surprised that both of you managed to watch the version where he's called Wolf the entire time is this movie was made during lawsuits where the estate of the creator of Arsène Lupin was suing Key Punch, and they weren't allowed to use the name Lupin for fear of getting lawsuits internationally.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you do me a favor? Can you just reiterate that? I'm sorry. The family of the creator of the original Arsène Lupin was suing somebody for using the fucking name.
Yes.
Now I'm just gonna do a little segue. I don't know if you guys knew about the first crossover of all fucking time: Arsène Lupin versus Sherlock Sholmes.
Yes. The creator of Arsène Lupin was sued because he did originally.
It was originally Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, okay. And the guy, and I'm forgetting his name somehow. The man who invented Sherlock Holmes,
Conan Doyle.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle sued him, and he changed it to Sherlock Sholmes.
You can also say Maurice LeBlanc.
Yeah, Maurice LeBlanc. But yes, I find that very charming. The version of the anime I watched was the second dubbing, which is closer to the Japanese translation, or a closer translation of the Japanese. And they'd made it after that, after it'd been long enough that the man had been in the ground, that they were like, we can start calling him Lupin again. So
there's a world here where they could have just switched it to Lupin, which is just French for rabbit. That would have been something that would have made me happy. They just go from wolf to rabbit, changing a letter.
I would have assumed he would be his name Lupin. I don't, again, speak French, so I thought you were going to say something different and much more graphic.
I'm so sorry. I really thought you spoke French.
Hi, I'm Sage. I've never seen a Miyazaki movie, but I speak French. What's up?
Yeah.
I've seen 3 Miyazaki movies, you piece of shit.
But this was your first time seeing anything Lupin related?
This is my first time seeing any of his that are kind of fantasy based in some way.
Oh, okay,
which was really interesting to watch. Just kind of okay, so I watched Spirited Away last week, and I'm not going to talk about that too much, but I am going to say, like, there's a little plot in my head, just like, I wonder if Miyazaki, like, what a heist movie would be like from him. And I didn't realize that's what Castle of Cagliostro was. So when it just starts with a bushel full of counterfeit cash in a car, like, I'm pretty on board. I'm pretty stoked.
With that in mind, do you want
to
attempt the summary?
We're about at that time. Do you want me to?
I'm curious. Like, let's see you boil it down to five sentences or so.
Okay. Well, we start with a fun counterfeit car chase where they've just robbed something, and Lupin realizes quickly that it is counterfeits, and rather than be upset about it, he realizes, ooh, here's an opportunity to find a counterfeiter and maybe potentially have a bigger score, and that counterfeiter is in Cagliostro, which I'm assuming is in Italy.
It's in Cagliostro.
It's in Is Cagliostro just San Marino, basically?
Sure.
Do you know what San Marino is?
Sure.
San Marzano, the tomatoes.
All right, basically,
it's a country near Italy. Yeah.
So it's in Italy. It's a microstate, but it is essentially just one castle that gets to operate on some different laws and is part of the EU, but it's got, like, fucking 20,000 people in it. It's like a Monaco. It's like something else where it's very clearly tax shelter crime stuff, but It's on a hill, so Italy never tried hard enough to invade it, I'm guessing. Anyway, when they arrive, they encounter a princess character trying to escape some thugs, and he rescues her but gets knocked out, but she gives him a little signet ring. How do we get from there to the actual castle?
Well, he
based
has he recognizes the writing. He's able to read the ring. They go to a restaurant. The waitress explains that it's the princess's ring, and she's due to get married to the Count of Cagliostro. She thinks it's a bad idea. Yada yada. He decides he needs to save the princess.
Yeah, so the Count of Cagliostro is marrying he's the regent of this little microstate. He's marrying the princess to solidify power, but also because there's a treasure involved that he thinks he can get to. Everyone thinks that they can get to a treasure, and Lupin enlists his friend, whose name I forgot how to pronounce. Jigen? Yeah. And he also tips off his cop nemesis Zenigata. Is that right? Yeah, I'm doing great. And they had comedy of errors heist their way into the castle, get trapped for a while in a dungeon. There's some fun stuff done around Castle.
You just.
Well, I'm not trying to hit scene by scene.
No, I
don't
know.
think that's what we'll talk about.
That really was
later,
that was like 25 minutes of the movie that you just did in one sentence.
Yada yada yada. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that you can kind of yada yada, which I don't mean dismissively. I think the fact that it's a heist movie that is breezy but isn't too complicated is really a strength for it. And then there's interrupts a wedding, has a showdown with the Count. Count gets crushed in a clock tower. It's very delightful. The castle sinks into the water. And the treasure is a lost Roman city that was flooded.
So there's your answer. Yes, it was probably Italy.
Yeah. Yes. Also, the fact that he like shows up multiple times is just like a very fat priest it is doing. I wish this movie like really leaned into Italian stereotypes like Luca does. I think there's no reason not to do that.
I mean, in the 70s, the Italians were more of a protected class,
Yeah.
so we weren't allowed to make as much fun of them as we do now.
Well, we talk about in the Ranma episode about how there's a lot going on in that Japanese, because so much of it takes place in China, involves Chinese characters. So there's like some weird racism that I don't fully understand. I would love to know what Japanese stereotypes of Italians are. Like, I bet that gets specific and weird. Anyway, yeah, there's my summary. It seemed to make Seamus very happy. And now we can talk about all the things that I glossed over. It's a heist movie.
It is a heist movie. It's a very cool, very suave, very fun heist movie.
There's tower climbing. There's escaping from dungeons. There's him, Wolf, dressing up as the inspector and saying like, "No, that's him dressed up as me."
Oh
and
God, it's such a good moment.
It's him just coming in like full steam too. It's so well done.
The opening of this movie, so much happens. We're introduced to them as they've already pulled off a successful heist. We get to see how clever they are with like the guards driving broken cars that are literally falling apart, all like. Even more so than the Blues Brothers, like the way they deal with cops, which is charming as shit. They get away with a goofy amount of money. And then, like you said, on a dime, they're like, oh, the score was kind of fake. Let's throw it all out. Let's start again because this is a good excuse for an adventure. Hey, bud? And he's like, yeah, bud, let's do it. And then we get serene European just like viewpoints as they like have a little road trip over like for the credits, which is one of my favorite parts of the movie where not even much is happening. They get like flats and you get to see their like the way that they tease each other and
Rochambeau who changes the tire.
To see who's going to change the tires. Then he doesn't even get off the car. He literally keeps his weight on it so that he has to change the tire with him sleeping on top of the car. And then without like a second's breath, the car drives by and they begin an incredible car chase, one of the best car chases I've ever seen in their adorable little Fiat, which I think is the reason that I drove a Honda Fit for so long, is I just wanted a small car like Lupin, even though I'm a large person who shouldn't be getting in small cars.
That's how I describe you to friends.
But like, this is way cooler. Like the Italian Job, like almost rebanded minis this way, but like I'd say this movie does even more for Fiats. They're so fucking cool. And driving up and down roadsides, like avoiding grenades while shooting at armor-plated tires. It's just like the world of this is so fast and fun. within like 10 minutes, and they're saving a princess by like driving a car off a cliff. It's great. And then you get to see a bunch of Italian meals also being fought over as like each dialogue, like every bit of exposition is delivered with such ridiculous speed and charm that this movie just sings. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was talking about earlier with Lupin, as just it does such a good job of switching from oh ha 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 they're fighting over spaghetti, ha ha ha, he's cawing at the waitress like a dog, and then he's suddenly just like, anyway, so we got to save the princess, and here's this brilliant plan. And it's like, oh right, okay.
And Sage, something you've talked about that like I don't always resonate with is your sense of place in stories, and how important it is for you to like kind of get different tones. Does this manage to feel like a far off land to you? Does this feel like a small European government inside of Italy? Like, does it have enough personality to transfer over?
Yeah. I mean, it's
or does it just feel like Italy to you? And I know
like a self-imposed kind of castle. I mean, it didn't feel that much like Italy, except for the Roman stuff at the end and some of the food. It really felt more like an Eastern European Count Dracula type thing. Not that directly, but
the Count is very fun when he's wearing like a goat mask and his ceremonial garb. His constant smirk of him just being a self-assured villain. No, it's like Dracula, but he's having fun with it. I get that.
Almost dead and loving it.
Yeah.
That Count's a real smug piece of shit.
Yeah. One thing I will say about this is that one of the pretty early on in the movie, because you mentioned food, there's one scene where the Count is eating soft-boiled eggs.
Yeah.
And he just kind of like cuts the top off of it, and then he's just sitting there slowly eating just the yolk. And I don't know why. I was like, I hate this guy. Like, I'm watching my cholesterol right now, so I can't have egg yolks. And also on top of that, like, who eats a fucking soft-boiled egg like that? That's crazy person.
You want to code someone for me to hate? It's European aristocracy. It's the only way to get me to hate someone more than like an oil oligarch or something.
Yeah, and it doesn't help when he's kidnapping and forcing people into marriage.
He hits that poor girl a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, she's an interesting character that like I've always kind of struggled with how young she's supposed to be. Kind of, it seems like she's probably a teenager. Is my
guess. She was away at school and back. I mean, I think she's at most.
So she's probably like 16 to 18.
I was gonna say at least. I think she's like 19.
Okay.
Because then also you have that Lupin had met her
when she was a kid, which was 10 years ago.
10 years ago, and she looked to be like 7 or 8. So I would guess that she's probably like. But also, that's the other thing is that initially it does read as like Lupin's trying to steal his bride and win the girl and all this, but like it's once he reveals like, oh yeah, like no, I met her like 10 years ago, and there's this whole like I want to thank her and all that. Like you realize that like his behavior with her and the way he talks about her and all of that is never romantic or like anything encroaching on that. He's very like not dismissive of her feelings, but he's like, okay, yeah. And then at the end, he's like, big brother, just big brother.
It's like flirtatious, but mostly chivalrous and caring.
Yeah. I'm going to be your knight in shining armor.
And literally, I mean, he'd flirt with a meatball. Like the man's.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, he also doesn't really lie. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he does.
Not to her, but
yeah, no, but I was gonna say, like, no, like when he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna be serious, he is telling the truth. And I think that there's a lot of truth when he's like, this is the kind of thing I dreamed about. I get to break into a castle and rescue a princess. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it without anything I can even take home. This is,
And I think that like it's interesting looking at like the time and place. This was created in the 60s. So you've got James Bond existing, and that's clearly the main inspiration for this character. And I think this is
the main inspiration for the character is probably Arsène Lupin, who, much like him, was a gentleman thief who sent his calling card to everyone.
Yeah. Okay. This is what I've wanted out of Bond movies, and I've never gotten. Is how I feel. And like the closest, like we talked about Indiana Jones, which does match this tone very well, where you've got something between Looney Tunes and James Bond.
I mean, Indiana Jones breaking into the castle to save his dad in Last Crusade is vibes wise pretty similar to some of the scenes of like Lupin swinging around on the rooftops and stuff.
And they've attempted a live action Lupin a couple times. I've never bit that bullet. I'm scared.
No, they've also done
Like they made it and you haven't watched it when you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I wouldn't be surprised. Much like many like popular anime and manga properties, there's probably the live action play or musical. There's definitely an ice show. I know they
definitely a nice show. I have seen that.
I think a few years ago they did like tried to do like a CG movie. I don't know how well that went over. I don't think it ever got
that came out. I think it got decent reviews actually.
I just don't think it ever got localized. I think it's only a subtitled. And then fully adapted, and then they did the original Lupin remake for Netflix, but that's different character. But
and that makes sense because you are talking about the one with Omar Sy. That's the actual original Lupin, and it's in French,
which I have not given a shot, but yeah, I've never really dug into his.
But you guys know me. I immediately saw it and went, "What? They cast Lupin the Third as a black guy? I can't watch that." And I shut off my Netflix account.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Don't do that. Then I can't watch Lupin.
None of those things I said were factual.
I just like this movie is such a comfort to me. It's just like an over the top, like just from beginning to end. I just am along for such a good time, and that translated into some of the Lupin series that I have watched outside of this, but it's something that I do look for in a lot of other media. And it's hard for me to come up with other series aside of Indiana Jones that really has nailed it the way that I think this movie did.
Another thing that this one does, and I'm hard pressed to pinpoint exactly when, like, where it originates from, but in all medias there's always those like little shared sound effects and things like that. The man being eaten by an octopus that's used in everything.
Alligator, yeah.
Oh, is it alligator? Okay.
Yeah.
But okay, Wilhelm scream.
Yeah.
But then in the same thing, it's the sound effect of Indiana Jones's punch, that like crack. Lupin the Third, especially Cagliostro, and then kind of this era of anime, there's a lot of things. It's that like weird like whenever like something mysterious is happening, when they have the guys in the armor with the knives, and there's like that like slashing little sound, ching, and like that shaking metal of like the armor clanks, like
the sounds of the Royal Guard attacking police on staircases with no guardrails, because
I love that. I aesthetically love that.
The country is very behind in its ADA compliancy. Not that the ADA necessarily exists there, but
I mean, they have a giant spiked hole full of dead bodies that they drop people into. I think I can tell you where. I think I can tell you where those compliance officers are.
There's a subtle thing happening in the sound design in this movie that like wasn't happening in a lot of contemporary animation. Certainly not. I probably didn't happen in the anime TV series, which is. People actually sound like they're in the environments they're in. It's a very subtle thing with reverb. I was noticing this in Spirited Away. There's an incredible scene where they're just two people talking in a cave, and it just sounds like they actually filmed it in a cave. They don't quite achieve those heights because sound editing was really fucking hard in the 70s. But it's not just like people doing clean voiceover being put on things, and that really fucking matters.
No, I agree. I completely agree with you. In fact, my favorite example of that in this one is the older guy who they stay with when he's recovering from his injuries.
Yeah.
Walter. I thought they did a great job of making him sound like a teenager trying to do an old man's voice in a YouTube parody video.
Now, see, again, you guys listened to a different version of it than I did, so I can't comment on his voice acting specifically.
Okay, so what version did you watch? Because I looked up. I think my Arsène Lupin was the same guy who did like Tweety Bird and like a bunch of Looney Tunes character, whatever. I know there's a version that has Solid Snake in it.
You all listened to, that's probably the one I listened to. You all listened to the streamlined version, which was the first one that was made. The dubs were written in order to look more like the mouth movements.
Okay.
So there was an emphasis on that over adhering to the Japanese original text.
That is an interesting and complicated way to translate things. I did notice that like it matched up kind of closely, but I kind of assumed that wouldn't be that hard to like remaster just mouth movements to English. Like I assume when
nowadays,
things are produced now, I mean, even even
now AI
Pixar
is
did
gonna
like a
be moving
Spanish
in.
version of Coco. It's like it's not cheap or easy, but you could do it.
Yeah. And then the version I watched was dubbed later, once they got the rights to use the name Lupin. They redid it. They got new cast, and it was rewritten to adhere closer to the original text. And that's the version I've grown up with. I've actually never seen the version you guys watched. I started watching it, and then I was like, "This is wrong," and went and found the version that I wanted to watch. Which
So
I
you're
love.
saying, did we watch movies that had like completely different dialogue?
I don't know. I don't think it's that different, to be honest. And I know the version that I grew up with and the version they also took that version and made another version using the same dialogue, but cut out all the swears. Because, like, in the version I watched, the Count, for instance, once in a fit of rage, does call Clarice a bitch.
Yeah, I got
he's
son
a bad
of a
guy.
breaking glass.
And you'll hear Lupin and his gang say "damn" occasionally, which apparently was too much for. Which is funny because again, this was coming from like a much raunchier place, and then this was a wholesome family version of it that they tried to clean up. But yeah.
No, so see, I watched whatever the version I was able to rent on YouTube was, because it was on Netflix for forever, and then it got moved off that, and then it's not on anything right now, so I had to rent it from.
Say like Max has pretty much the entire Ghibli Miyazaki collection, but this isn't in there. Although, is this not a Ghibli film?
This is not. This predates.
This predates Ghibli.
Okay.
Predates Ghibli.
So that's where the licenses come in, and it's not like they have every Miyazaki film. They have everything from his studio.
And Studio Ghibli directly comes out of the Lupin TV show, because those two, Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki, along with a few other people that they founded it with, they moved on from this. They went and spent time on Little Nemo in Slumberland before leaving.
Oh, what a good one.
They didn't follow that one all the way through because they were like working with, there was American and Japanese co-production, and they were just watching the two of them try and work together and like, hey guys, this is a sinking ship. Let's get the fuck out of here and avoid Americans for as long as we can. And who can blame them? And that's how you get Studio Ghibli, is they keep moving on from there. But this is like the foundation of like, it's I think at this point Isao Takahata had directed a movie that Miyazaki had worked on, and this was Miyazaki's first feature as a director. And they really redid the tone to start kind of building up what would eventually be more of their what they wanted to put out in the world. And what's really fun too is like the way that this adventure becomes kind of serialized. And I'm trying to like kind of sneak in talking about the show as much as I can, because first of all, if you do want to find this movie, before I forget, it's on Internet Archive. Just look up the manga dub is the one that I like and really enjoy. And it's free until someone takes it down and decides that it's worth copywriting, I guess. I don't know. And then if you can find like if you want to check out the TV series, it's part 2 is where they really, this version of Lupin, he dons a red jacket, but this is like where that style of adventure.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there is when talking about Lupin stories, there's the green and the red.
There's more. There's a lot of colors of jackets, and later on, they have movies where a bunch of Lupin impersonators are donning different jackets and all claiming to be the real Lupin. They get really silly with it. Like, it's the same that you've got impersonators impersonating Sherlock Holmes, and some adventures are like false.
Sherlock Holmes.
They play very loose and fast with like what is real, and even like Monkey Punch, the creator of the manga, says he really enjoys this film, but it's not.
Is this gentleman named Monkey Punch? What's happening?
It's his pen name.
Okay.
It's a pen name that
feels worth stopping and clarifying.
Actually loves. Yeah, no, it's created by I don't know the man's real name.
Satoru Monkey Punch.
Monkey Punch. Yeah, and I mean, it was a rocky start for the series, but like at the time, this movie was also. Just to put in a clarification, how did you guys feel about the animation overall, or like the look of the film in general?
Yeah. I don't have like strong feelings. Like it's not taking me away to a magic land where I'm seeing things I've never seen before. It's like, oh, these fights are pretty good. This is more than I expect from a TV show, more than I expect from animation at this time. But what are you asking me to judge it against?
I was just curious what you guys thought.
I mean, is it your name? No, but like it's. I think. I mean, more than anything, like there's a nostalgia thing just from the movie itself and being like,
Sure.
you know, being old. And then there's a lot of like little style things that I noticed that are very Miyazaki when the castle guard and the police are like ramming into each other
Yeah.
and Zingata's sneaking underneath them. Like there's all these little things. They do a lot of the floating swim thing.
Oh God, yeah. The way they're swimming in water constantly, or like
Yeah.
falling into a pit and swimming in midair before dropping.
I guess I don't notice these things.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
And like I was talking about earlier, there's a lot of like they pay a lot of attention to like Lupin especially. They pay a lot of attention to like just his facial expressions.
hmm
And you know, like again, he goes from kind of like boisterous and goofy, and he's doing his like British accent, and he's got big old eyes, and then she's like, "I'm in danger," and he's like, "I know," and it's back to just like completely normal face, and it's like they do those seamlessly really well, and I think that's just a combination of the character being well written and the animation being really smooth. But it does a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of those Miyazaki things too, where it's here's something very beautiful, and here's just a little bit of it moving.
Yeah. And I mean,
Like-
that's
like-
obviously a budget and a speed thing.
Yeah. I mean, the
But-
end, the three of them on the clock tower is, basically not moving. And it's just three very far apart people just slowly moving.
Yeah.
And I think
especially
it's
at
such an
scope.
incredibly cool shot.
Yeah, and at scope you don't need the like small details. What you have is like those beautiful scenery, and like this movie looks great in terms of the backgrounds and the way they use them. Just
Yeah.
are stunning and expansive.
My point is, if Avatar can win best cinematography, so could Miyazaki.
Sure. And what's interesting to me
The
is
Lion
like
King.
there's a clunkiness to the character design that I find very charming. But I know at like when it came out, people were kind of like, what are these illustrations? What do these people look like? The main character kind of does look like a monkey, and the way that he's drawn, and there's no like, if you drew the character sheet with all his expressions, like none of them make sense. His face does not maintain any sense of realness when he is doing those larger than life expressions. So I'd always kind of assumed it was an early attempt at like taking a TV show and making a movie out of it, which I know is more common in anime and manga. Like they are developing things there and they are able to prove there's a fan base. So it makes sense to take those jumps.
We make the movies like 20 years after the TV show has. That was true with Star Trek, and it's still through with like Fall Guy and A-Team and shit like that.
Well, and so this was the most expensive anime feature at its time, which blew my mind because it's beautiful. Like I think it's stunning, but I was surprised that it was the most expensive.
How much of that
being
was
said-
licensing?
I mean, I don't know. They clearly didn't get the rights to do the
Apparently
English
none.
French.
Good point.
But it was also made over 5 months from beginning to end, like including they started production in May, include like writing it, and we're animating before they finished the storyboards, and we're done in December. It premiered in December of the same year, which is nuts to me.
I don't really have a context of time or budget when it comes to animation. It's always an overwhelming amount of work, but that does
Yeah.
sound fast.
It sounds crazy fast.
Yeah.
And yes, same. I don't know how
Yeah.
I can barely draw. I come from a family of illustrators, and I did not did not practice that gene, unfortunately.
I mean, that feels the same way as like when you learn that like famously X-Men First Class was 10 months from when they wrote it to when it came out in theaters.
That's crazy.
Yeah, especially because like the movie's pretty good. Like there's definitely other movies, other big budget CGI fests you could convince me were conceived to screen in 10 months. If you told me Suicide Squad was made in 10 months, I'd believe you. You know,
Still, like,
Actually,
anytime
10,
you're
10 months for Suicide Squad seems a little long.
doing-
well, they had to do all the reshoots, so I'm sure it took a while. Are there reshoots in animation? There's got to be.
Well, I know in this one they wrote like a 4 or 5 act structure and cut it down to 3 because they just didn't have time to finish the 4th and 5th acts. So I guess they just didn't finish shooting and wrote around it.
Well, here's, you guys might know this. So with anime or something that's like got a little less focus on, you know, mouth movement, let's say, than Western
Okay.
animation. Well, I know like Pixar and Disney and everything else, famously they'll bring in all their actors and they'll read through the entire script, and they've got a whole recording that they're working off of, and they're building the animation around that. And I'm sure it's easy enough to get people to come in and change things, but mouth movement is designed for that. I'm wondering if you could in anime just like storyboard it, write it out, and then put in whatever you want, as long as it's, you know, not twice as long as you've allowed for an animation.
I
I'm
mean,
not saying
that's
they would do this, but like
are
you
you
could, right? You got a
are you
lot more
presuming
flexibility.
for the dub, or is that including like the original language versions?
I mean, I'm just talking about the original language, but I suppose if it's also something for multiple audiences, like there's kind of less incentive to put the extra work and budget into that to begin with.
Well, you've kind of happened onto an interesting subsection of anime fandom, which is
Shit.
Sub versus dub.
I was gonna say a bridge series.
Oh, continue.
Where if you're talking about editing it down so that you can match mouth movements or anything like that, that's what a lot of like, especially like the really high end, really well done ones like Dragon Ball Z abridged, they really do just sit there and watch, and like they've talked about how the writing of their script is, yeah, you know, so Goku doesn't make E sounds that much, so that's a bad example because Vegeta, but he like they're like there's not a lot of like clear mouth movements for like this, so this character doesn't talk like that way or some things like that. That is something that is considered when they're doing dubs and things like that.
You tell me there's nerds out there just doing like bad lip readings and putting it
There,
for anime, like
there,
the series bad lip reading, not actually
yeah.
qualifying.
I'm sorry, you've never seen Dragon Ball abridged? The
I've
thing
never
that
seen
actually
Dragon
the,
Ball.
yeah, well, most people who claim to have seen Dragon Ball haven't either. They've only seen Dragon Ball abridged, but it is really good. And
Oh,
yeah, it is just them like lifting. It starts out a little crude, but by the end, they get really good at it, and
sure.
it's just them taking basically like abridging the story and then adding in their own humor, but they do a really good job of matching the mouth to dubs, and like they make the script come out of what, you know, frames they basically had available for doing that. So I don't know. Yeah, you were. I don't know if that's exactly what you were talking about. That was just where my mind went when you were like, "Could you steal a bunch of scenes and then
Not
just go in
remotely
and?"
what I was talking about. I
What?
was just talking about the process of like slavishly like sticking to a script because it's recorded, or like having the flexibility to move stuff around as you're animating.
I'm
Well, okay. On that, I think there is some stuff where it's. You actually see a little bit of it in this. There's a lot of scenes of the princess where whenever she has to like she says like more like longer sentences, it actually seems to be like kind of pulled away because I think the character was drawn to be not as emotive. So
Mhm.
matching of mouth movements, they're just like, screw it, just it's overhead shot or it's far away or she's leaning over somebody. But then I think there are also those they basically work in a way where it's they're not writing here's what this face looks like making each and every single like letter. It's more of like just general sounds that look like this is the face that looks like I'm saying this is the face that looks like I'm saying buh, and so they're going to just kind of use those to navigate it. And so having a locked in script, it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing with claymation. Whenever you see they're like, here's the 500 heads of Jack Skellington, it's the same exact process of just saying we have a cell that we can insert to any frame at any time that is them, and we can piece these together to make it look like they're saying any word. Changing of the script, the only thing that's going to really, you know, beef that muff that up is like, oh, we need the character to be missing an eye now, or we need the character to be, you know, a different color or something. But for the most part, like that is the I think one of the benefits of animation. I'm sure it's tedious and exhausting, but as far as I understand it, like if you're gonna put the fucking time in, they can match everything up.
Yeah, it is a matter of time and budget. And I'm assuming just overtime is part of the reason this movie was so expensive, that just getting through those 5 months in production. But I'd assume that they did do the original scripts in Japanese first and were animating to the voices. That is an assumption.
Lupin the Third.
All right, I'll confess. There's a problem that I brought up to you watching a lot of anime where I really feel my attention, my focus really drifts. So I always make sure that when I do this, I put my phone in the other room and my watch and everything else, which ended up being like a real problem with Spirited Away and a couple of other things. I feel bad about this. But just like the animation style, certainly in the fantasy ones, kind of keeps me from fully engaging with plot mostly. I feel like I'm somehow along with the characters, but I'm not really sure what they're doing. Which is, a pro in the character column. And Cagliostro also affected me a little bit that way, which is kind of why I yada through the plot, because at a certain point it's just like, oh, I guess we're in a dungeon now. Let's see them be in a dungeon. Oh, I guess we're at a wedding now.
I mean, this movie is pretty. Its speed is flowy, breezy.
Yeah.
It like moves on. Like you are literally in the dungeon in a second.
It's long for an animated movie from around that. It's like an hour 45, hour 50. So, but it's very quick.
Yeah, and you are moving from location to location. It doesn't like to linger too long in one place.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, an incredible variety for a movie that is primarily in a castle. A castle's big, but it's still like one location. Although, did they go to the UN for a little bit?
There are scenes in the UN, yeah.
Yeah.
The characters themselves don't go to the UN aside from Zenigata to argue his case that, like, hey, guys, they're making a bunch of funny money out in this place.
Him at the end finding the
Oh,
counterfeiter room. Oh my God! I was here on this other case, and look what I happened to find.
Yeah. What should I do?
Oh no!
I'm hoping that was the opening for this podcast episode. Personally,
it can be. I'm a big fan of the people here have a lot of money, and how I've always been attracted to people with money.
Oh, my favorite line in the entire movie is when Lupin is in disguise comes up to get the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck, what was it? He's my goat's sick.
Yes.
And he goes, Heavenly Father, please make this kid well again. Amen.
See, in the version I watched, that actually is much smaller of an interaction. He's like, "Would you please bless this lamb?" And the father
please God
throws it
please
out.
Heavenly Father, please make this kid well again. Amen. It's so casual, and like the driver's already talking over him as he says it, which makes the line even better.
And this is why it's hard to even give too much credit to the characterization of the dialogue, just because like I'm not sure who did what. I'm not sure what of this is the original writers or Miyazaki or what's other people figuring out later, or we even watch different English dubs, so like a wacky line or something. It's just I'm hesitant to give any too much credit of that to the film.
Well, I would argue that they are the film, first off, but secondly, the main thing for me is like that this movie is very, very visually expressive. And for the people who like saw it early on and talked about it, like, Lasseter and like other directors who've cited it as an influence, they cite that they're watching the original versions aren't even subtitled. Like when it first came over as a video game. As like, are you familiar with Dragon's Lair?
Oh, yeah.
It came out, so this is, I'm sorry, I should have brought this up earlier, but like this game was originally released in America as a video game called Cliffhanger. And they renamed the character Cliff. So Lupin became Cliff. I don't understand past that.
What if Sylvester Stallone's character in Cliffhanger was named Cliffhanger?
Well, it is a reference.
Wait, it's not?
But yeah, and it basically you have to like turn the direction, like you spin the controller or whatever. It was originally a Laserdisc video game that you put in an input at the right time, and then it proceeds to show the rest of the clip.
When you say Laserdisc video game, what the fuck are you talking about?
It was Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, do you not know what Laserdiscs are?
I didn't know they had video games on them at all.
More things.
Do you know what Laserdiscs are? I'm friends with Adam.
Do you know what Dragon's Quest is then?
Is that related to
Dragon's
Dragon
Lair?
Warrior?
Dragon's Lair. It's an old arcade game, and basically what it is they had this fully animated cartoon movie, They play it in like season 2 of Stranger Things. They're playing it in like the first episode, and it's a big thing. Or season
And
3, I think.
specifically, actually, a cabinet of cliffhanger shows up in Goonies.
Gavin's favorite movie.
About to have a sequel.
Oh no.
But anyways, it would be is that you're playing like a knight, and it's just like you walk up to a bridge, and they're like, do you walk ahead or do you try to take a route upon it? And it's like one is the wrong answer, but if you don't do it quick enough, you'll just get swooped up by a kraken or something like that. And it was notoriously hard. It's quarter eater and things like that. But then what they would do is they translate it to a home port, and it would just be something like you have your remote, and you would just be like left, right, up, just keying it in at the right time to hopefully fulfill an action, and then you just get to continue to watch a cartoon. Lupin the Third.
For a game to be able to be written over scenes from this movie, I think just a strength of like how visually communicative these characters are. Like so much of it is told without real vocalizations. Exposition is just told through like power plays visually in such a really stunning way that it just works for me really well.
Yeah, maybe I just won't give credit for specific dialogue, but everything else still counts. Dialogue is not everything in acting.
Yeah, I would say go ahead and rate it based on the dialogue that you heard, and we'll find out how you like the streamline audio. With that being said,
I was going to make an audio. I was going to make two little quick comments I wanted to get out of. One, because we didn't really get to talk about his companion characters that much. I just want to throw out. So my quick thoughts on them is one, Jigen, ride or die, awesome. I always loved the design of him, but he makes fucking cigarette smoking look so fucking cool.
They all smoke so many cigarettes.
They make it look great, but it's also like the cigarettes in it. There's one specific moment that I just love, and it's that I think earlier on it's basically implied that Zenigata's lost his cigarettes. And then Lupin's on the roof and he's trying to light the rocket, and he finds out he doesn't have a working lighter, and then he drops it while he's looking for matches or something. And then when they're down in the dungeon together, he's just sitting there. He's like, "Do you have a light, by the way?" And then it cuts back to them both sharing the single cigarette they have amongst them. And I just thought that was like, it's like a thing that's like barely even set up, and then it's like, oh, that's funny. Same thing, like earlier on in the movie, we talked about him going through the gears in the water and all of that, and like, oh man, he's getting dragged through it cartoonishly. And then later on, we have all these gears in the clock tower. That's the top of the windmill that they were going through, and same kind of thing. He's like dancing along the beams and all that. But then at the same time, we also see a guard get crushed to death by it.
Yeah, that's like a pretty visceral moment where, for a movie that's pretty bloodless up until that point, like there's
look away.
Yeah, everyone's getting like shot with anti-tank guns, but they're all fine.
Yeah.
There's like those really fun assassins with all like the razor blade fingers running around, sneaking around.
That is the thing I should have mentioned in my plot line. They go to a motel and then suddenly there's a bunch of ninjas. I'm like, all right, thought we were in Italy.
Well, those are Italian ninjas.
Right. Yeah, dog. The other thing is his other
Ninji, they're called in Italy.
Yes. His then we have Fujiko. Yeah, Fujiko, who she's there posing as the working for the count in some capacity, but she's there on her own interest to steal the fortune, but then realizes that Lupin's there, so she's getting out. But then she's an anti-hero in the loosest sense of the anti, you know what I mean? Like she's like, I'm not going to help you, then helps them all a lot. And then the last one, who I forgot really just doesn't do shit in this movie, is Goemon. Yeah. He says, he's got great, he literally just delivers he has 5 lines and they're all just bangers. But he really is just there for atmosphere and cutting a pedestal one time. And it was the same thing on the show, was you always had Jigen. You had Fujiko was in every other episode, and he would just show up once in a while, and he would always just fucking wreck shit when he showed up. But he's never there. And then again, we were going to get into the dub, which one did you watch kind of thing. But in the one that Sage and I watched, Sage, I don't know if you noticed it, the most clearly coded as Asian or not white character had the whitest fucking voice. Just sounded like somebody out of Wisconsin. He's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm here to be a swordsman. I heard you guys needed help. Don't you know? Yeah." It just, I don't know if that's how. I haven't seen this in a few years.
You betcha, I'm gonna fight you.
That was the one thing that really took me. I was like, wow, this guy is the whitest voice.
I would love
Yeah,
to
that was
watch.
not.
We could make a dub of this movie that's just like strong Midwest or Cajun or something.
Wow. Yeah, no, that was not the case in the version I watched. Like one of my favorite lines that he delivers is when they're crashing the airplane over their car, and he slices he slices the burning clothes off of Lupin so he
Yeah.
can land in the car. And he just goes, "Oh, this is beneath my blade."
He's just stoic and cool. Like
Yeah.
there's also like they do multiple establishing shots of the two of them sitting there with the rifle or the sword waiting for the signal, and they finally get the signal. And then we never actually see what they were supposed to do because they just get to the car and pick them up in a crashing airplane.
Yeah, they're like, wow, this adventure was over before it even started for us.
It sounds
There's
like they
also,
cut out an act or two.
Yeah, the really charming moment too of like the princess saying, like, as they're covering their getaway, she's just like, please both of you come back safe. And she's constantly like, she's not given a lot to do, but she is always like just being the most heartwarming person imaginable and cares about everybody. And the moment where she does actually grab the count who's threatening to kill Lupin and throw herself and him off the clock tower is pretty ballsy. So like, you know, on the one hand, she's very much like a damsel in distress, but she's given her moments to be kind of a badass herself.
Yeah, I don't love what the movie does with her at the end, where she just professes all of her undying love to Lupin and says, you know, I'll be whatever you want me to be. I remove all of my agency because I'm in love with you.
My favorite.
I really feel like that. I'm hoping that might be some kind of lost in the dub, lost in translation kind of a culture thing, because I know there is a lot of confusion in localized and dubbed older animes where people are referring to each other as like bro and sis, and like that led to people thinking that a lot of anime was more incestuous than it is. It is just a term of endearment for like older older person who lives with you, or you know, like just older like student. You know, we didn't always just do notice me senpai.
Yeah, sure. In the version I watched, it's, you know, I don't know what you guys got, but she does want to run away and become a thief with him.
Yeah.
And I do love, it's very cheesy, but Zenigata comes up afterwards and is like, damn it, he got away again and he stole a treasure. And she's like, but what? He didn't take anything. And he's like, he did. That fucker took your heart. She's like,
I would have loved if in that moment the whole tone of the movie changes and it just shows a gaping hole in her chest and Lupin driving off with a bloody heart.
Yeah, pardon my language, by the way. I just got excited, but yeah.
Can we not swear in this fucking show?
No, we can. I just try not to.
Still good as for the children.
But yeah, it's very endearing to me. That's all. Should we rate this episode? Or this movie? Should we Sage, what's our rating system?
Is it still good? Or is it is it better as a memory? Or does it just try too hard to keep the treasure and get crushed in a clock tower, which then falls into the sea?
Oddly specific, and it's crazy how like,
well, it was the 70s. It actually happened a lot.
I know that's supposed to be the bad one, but it sounds so cool. I want to give it that.
I mean, I've got a soft spot for like animation, especially. A lot of movies do end this way. I'm thinking this is kind of the
Great Mouse Detective,
but like
Great Mouse Detective definitely.
I was thinking Aladdin, King of Thieves.
Aladdin, King of Thieves.
Yeah.
There's a lot of how do I describe it? Stuck in gear popping deaths in children's animation.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also while it's sinking into the ocean.
Yeah, they really didn't build those clock towers with maintenance in mind back in the day.
No,
yeah, they really Han Solo'd the count.
They were more about
one.
hiding treasure than they were about being functioning clock towers.
Well,
that's how I feel about like every Uncharted game, where it's just like, all right, this is a badly designed clock tower.
Well, it's it did have an Uncharted feel to it, because they get out and there's clearly a ladder. There's clearly a ledge to a thing. I'm like, how did you guys had 500 years to solve this fucking mystery, and at no point did somebody climb up and be like, why is there a fucking ladder on the clock tower directly
because it wasn't
to this
painted yellow.
Oh yeah, because you don't know you can hold it if it's not. The other thing is also it's like the entire plot of it is okay, to unlock the treasure, somebody has to climb up there, put the eyes in.
And
Now this
climb
is
back
built
down. That's
and
the
climb
part
back
you
down
gotta
within
tell
the
'em.
30 seconds that the thing is going to literally just go and just crash into the ocean.
Yeah.
Uh,
He does.
anyways,
Yeah. He gets popped like an ant by like a little kid, just like between two
no,
fingers.
it's that contorting that he's doing as it's like going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And it
It's
also like
brutal
cuts
and
so
silly.
far away when the death happens, and there's just a little pop.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody does like fucking deaths like
violence
Miyazaki.
like Miyazaki.
Yeah. When he's
Doesn't
not
do it
writing about
often.
loss, he's
Yeah.
inserting very brutal deaths into children's movies.
I feel like I've only watched the children goes on metaphorical journey through fantasy worlds subgenre of his.
Oh,
and just
yeah.
like,
Well, what do you
which is
think
a lot of them.
what do you think My Neighbor Totoro's about?
Was one of the ones I watched. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm not using it dismissively.
Which dub did you watch though?
I don't fucking know.
Well, if you thought it was a light romp.
I watched whatever was on.
I mean,
Max.
yeah, it is about a sick mom. Anyway, this movie is still good. I love it. I love it so much. It's such a charming movie. I had
Oh,
such
totally.
a good time watching it. It just fills my heart with joy and puts a smile on my face.
Short and sweet. I'm not mad at this movie. I don't think I could give it a still good without having the benefit of nostalgia. And I think it is just as simple as like I set this movie up for subjective success with me. Like, like I said, I gave it my full attention, wasn't too tired. I've got no excuse for watching. It's not like I fell asleep at 3 p.m. because that's how I watch movies. And I don't think a good conscience I could give a still good to something that just couldn't hold my focus. I don't know. It's my subjective opinion, but I got nothing against this movie. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think I said this up front is that I don't even think you need to qualify it as is this still good? I think is it a good movie? Yeah. I guess in a way I'm
we still just use these terms. They're being
No, I know.
for a lot of
I know.
times.
But I mean
Especially
I'm
when I
actually-
haven't seen it before. How
We're
can it be better as a
contractually
memory? How can it be
obligated.
still
No,
good?
No, I know. I'm just saying more that I think just to kind of counter what Sage is saying is, if you're saying, this would be elevated if there was more nostalgia for you. I feel like I have a lot of nostalgia for this. And in a way that actually had led me to not go back and rewatch it because I'm like, oh, I've seen it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then when you guys were like, oh, we want to talk about it, I was like, yeah, I actually haven't watched it in a while. And I'm not going to lie, I rented it on YouTube and then I watched the Quiet Place Day One.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't very good.
No.
Then when I did watch it, I was like, why did I put this off? This is a great movie. I had a great time. I was like, it's just one of those things. I'm engaged. Like the animation's crisp. It's cute. Lupin's just such an exciting and fun character. Immediately was like Googling like where can I watch the old animes because it ignited that nostalgia in me, but I didn't need that to be there. I feel like this is a movie that somebody people could watch and just go, yeah, that's good. There's not a lot of like, I don't know. There's not a lot of like, it has its own aesthetic, and Miyazaki's always dealt in these kind of like loosely defined time kind of things, and especially in the more fantastic ones. And like this, he's got the little like rappel that he has to hand crank and all those little things. Like those are just cool gadgets. And I don't think that you could make this exact same thing today, and people will be like, yeah, that's awesome.
We do have we have
I like some of
lasers
that.
and finger rockets in this movie as well. There are gadgets galore. Yeah.
I got nothing bad to say about this movie. It just didn't get me there. And I would be very curious. I would love to find, an anime movie or a Japanese animation movie specifically, because there are a lot of Western animes that for some reason my head can get behind. That would be, I would consider like, no, this is a great movie. I don't know. I hope we can make that happen. Gavin, please keep an eye out for like revival screenings, because I think a lot of these, especially the, enveloped in a fantastical world, will work for me when I am stuck in a theater. The same way that if I'm sure if I watched The Irishman on Netflix, like so many of my friends, I would have hated it, but I loved it when I was really swept on that journey in a room I couldn't leave.
I mean, the Ghibli stuff pops up in theaters pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
year they re-release them. They unfortunately don't work them into the A-list, so I don't wind up going often.
Yeah.
But
you know, we live in a town of revival theaters. Like,
sure, I'm sure Vidiots is will play it at some point. I haven't seen this, and I don't know if there's like there might be a rights issue that might be a part of the reason that it's not really anywhere very easy to find, and why you guys wind up watching an older version of the dub than the one that I had. So I don't know, but yeah, no, I mean, we'll keep plugging away at them. I had one other friend expressing one that they'd like to watch, which is a much more, even more human and grounded story that maybe I'll show you. And
Is it Castle in the Sky?
It's not. That is an
Which-
ungrounded
did my
film
boy
because
make
it's in the sky,
3
Seamus.
movies with Castle in the title? What's up with that?
They actually all share some lineage too. I think some of the robot designs float between those movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's.
I know the
don't if it-
Howl's move.
Yeah, well, Howl's Moving Castle,
That's the
Castle in the
castle
Sky.
that's moving.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure.
No,
I'm assuming the castle in the sky is also moving. Otherwise, how is it staying in the sky?
Yeah, I mean, just because I'm just thinking of, what would be.
Hit me with some recommendations.
Yeah,
If I didn't like Castle of Cagliostro as much as I genuinely should, what should I check out?
I mean, they're both fantasy, but they're interesting, and I think they're a little more similar to Lupin and like Castle of Cagliostro, but they're different, and that would be Castle in the Sky and like Paco Rosso.
Mhm.
Those are the Miyazakis I'd really recommend if you just like really vibed with Castle of Cagliostro. The same thing, it's going to be totally different, but similar vibes to the character and things like that, and it's inspired by it. And we talked about it up top, Cowboy Bebop. That's a easy recommendation at all times. But then also Outlaw Star, Black Lagoon.
The extremely gifted buffoon is like a very fun niche that I particularly enjoy as well. And Trigun is a show about the deadliest shot in the universe. But
I don't know. You had me watch Trigun, and I gave it a couple episodes. I fucking despised it.
that's fine. It is
Yeah.
it is much more animated than this is. I was recommending this to our audience, Sage. It's not all about
Okay.
you.
Well,
my recommendation in this world would be like, I'd actually like this movie also reminds me of the affinity I have for Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and just crime buffoonery is great. I love watching these kind of on the sides of polite society, people trying to figure it out, and no matter how good they might be or how bad they might be at something, there's still like this gentleness to the world that is also its cruelty, where nothing will ever go according to plan, but you're gonna kind of be okay. It's just like a gentler and weirder version of the world that I really enjoy spending time in.
Yeah,
Well
I
said.
mean, you definitely could also just do some of the more like lighthearted heist films. The Ocean's 11 series is actually pretty fun. A really good one a couple years ago was Logan. Was it Logan Lucky with
Yeah.
Like similar things, just likable, funny characters doing a heist.
do love a heist. I'm excited. I don't know if we'll do a planned episode for it, but Den of Thieves has a sequel, and I found that like a fun like Heat throwback heist movie. I think the instant you actually put that many bullets in a movie, I think it kind of stops being a heist movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what
Like-
the rules are.
Yeah. I don't know when do you get from Ocean's 11 to like the town?
Is this gonna be the weird? This is how the beginning of the weird Scream version of the heist movie starts. What are the rules for existing in a heist movie? Well, if you have to ask if you're in a heist movie, everyone's a suspect.
Yeah. Masks won't help you.
Have the Wayans done their heist movie yet?
Not another heist movie.
No, it was White
Man.
Heist.
You think White Heist?
Actually,
Juana Heist. I broke Seamus.
Yeah. All right. I think that's an episode. Seamus, thank you for joining us. I had a good time. Sage, I'm sorry this one wasn't
I
for you.
just want to make sure that you know, Juana Man. That's not a Wayans Brothers movie. That is a Miguel Nunez Jr. Put some fucking respect on his fucking face. That Spider from Return of the Living Dead, man.
What's happening right now? I don't care.
I care.
Okay.
Well, Thank you both for being here. I'm sorry that this anime didn't quite work for you, Sage.
Keep
Maybe
trying.
we'll find one someday.
I hope so.
You can follow us at Still Good Pod on IG or wherever else we might have signed up an account.
Let's get on that blue
Seamus,
sky. I think that's going well.
Seamus, where would you like people to find and follow you?
I deleted my Twitter because
Hell
well,
yeah. Because of the Nazi stuff and the
the
apartheid
Nazi,
stuff and the cyber trucks.
because of everything there.
Yeah.
You
But,
can find them on
you-
Mastodon.
General state of
Truth
discourse in
Social.
society.
I think you can find me. You can still find me on Instagram, I guess.
Okay.
I'm at Seames, Seameese. And if you want to occasionally hear my voice talk about politics, you can always listen to the New Abnormal Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays with the Daily Beast, and that is on any podcasting platforms.
Wow, any of them. You can find us on some of them. So subscribe and check out other episodes. Thank you for being here. Goodbye.
Yeah, thanks.
You can't find me.